What's up, everybody? Welcome to Rear Naked Radio. I'm one of your hosts, Jamie Kilstein.
And I'm Drew Weatherhead, the other host, welcoming you to Season 3, Episode 1. Bitches, we made it to 3. How's that?
We did. We didn't do any weird twists in Season 2 to try to desperately extend our reign like they do in television, where like Drew and I didn't have a feud over a girl. We didn't introduce like a weird like animal sidekick.
I guess we kind of screwed them up a little bit on the last one because I wasn't part of the interview. So maybe there was like a cliffhanger ending, like, does Drew come back for Season 3? We should have played that up.
Yeah. That's actually a really, but I mean, you listen to it, right? Because like you love me so much.
Of course.
So you know what happened at the end.
Yeah, but
what happened at the end?
Well, it was the thing where you guys were talking about jiu-jitsu and
like, how fucking much you like jiu-jitsu. So
we got a lot of reception from Kendall reusing, hey?
Dude, it's probably the most
it's being talked
emails
about.
I got about an interview, like DMs.
Which I'm half happy about and half like, why is it when I'm not there?
Can I tell you? That's why I didn't, because I was going to post that on Instagram, or I was going to post, this is the most
best episode
we've got. But I realized like, it's like, and then just like sadly tagging you would have been like a real fuck you if taken the wrong way. No, well, I mean, I just, I think I had free reign to just ask her about all this shit I'm struggling with, you know, and people can kind of,
and man, it was
the same stuff.
It was a long session.
It was a while. I just interviewed Pete Holmes for my podcast, and we started together, resented each other, and then he is now so wildly famous. And it was just 2 hours of therapy for both of us. It was so good.
That sounds like quite a story arc.
Yeah, it was crazy. And but anyway, so. Yeah, Kendall was fucking great. And the people who were writing in, I think were mostly pathogens. So we're like our fans.
That sounds like an insult.
We're mostly disgusting diseases. But so I'm not sure if like we got new listeners, in which case, hello, if we did.
By the way, we call you pathogens with love if you're new. That's our word for you.
Yeah. And by the way, Drew's doing the whole episode this time. If you're stick around, I'm sure.
Drew's also just learning about this. So see you, Jamie.
I'm always glad when it can resonate, when it can I mean, when Kendall was talking about, I think I said this to her in the interview. I don't think we've talked about it, Drew, where when I was like, it's so weird. I feel like I have depression and anxiety, but like I'm pretty successful and I get a lot of shit done. And then someone posted a meme that was like, do you have high functioning anxiety? And I'm like, what the fuck is that? And then like I read it. It was like, so I dropped out of high school. The only tests I have aced, like gotten 100%, gotten all the questions right, were like, are you an addict test, the Al-Anon test for like adult children of alcoholics, and I think there was an eating disorder one, and then also high performing anxiety. And I'm like, oh, that's what I am. It's me. It's me. I mean, it's a me.
If you do something that you love, you never work a day in your life.
You know, that's what they say, man. There's no weekend in this world for this guy.
Speaking of which, sorry, I put a post out earlier this week, sort of reminiscing about my old career. Did you see that one?
That was crazy. I wrote you.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I got a lot of cool response from that, and like, really, I don't typically use my platforms for inspiration. It's more like sarcastic memes and jiu-jitsu videos. So it was a little out of character, but it came up in conversation in a chat group. I was talking about welding and starting to remember, like, man, it's been a while and I haven't thought about it once. And like, I don't miss it at all.
Yeah.
So I went back through, dug through my Facebook history, through my photos, trying to find some old pictures of me welding. And the weird thing is there's almost none. There's like 100 jiu-jitsu pictures to every one welding picture I could find.
It was like a different life.
Well, that it speaks to what I thought was interesting or important or I cared about. Right. So I was stuck in this trade that I began resenting deeply. I was
Yeah.
becoming like just a miserable cunt stuck in
Yeah.
this job for the most of the last 5 years of that trade. And during that time, I took like almost no video, no footage of any of it,
Oof.
because it was like it was prison for me. And
Yeah.
then once I got out, I would take these happy pictures at jujitsu and at tournaments, and
Yeah.
so it kind of, maybe people that are feeling the same way can sort of do your own self-analysis and be like, what am I happy to share? How can I
Yes.
make that something that becomes a part of my life, and maybe hopefully your income?
Yeah, where, if even if it's something like all the pictures in your phone are of cats, it's like, okay, because the cliche would be like, oh, you're fucking lonely cat guy, and your name is Jamie, and you host a podcast. But maybe it's like you should volunteer at a shelter, or maybe, you know what I'm
Sure.
saying? Like, there's
Dude, in the digital age of the internet, cats reign like 50% of the internet. So that's a
you
good
could
thing to
you
like.
could do a fucking cat meme page. You could be the Drew of
Sure.
cats because cats. Um, but it's I think so much of it comes from like self-worth, where people just don't feel like they deserve
Yeah.
to be happy, to make a living with something that makes them happy,
Well, you know
or
what it
that they're
was for
not
me?
special or not good enough or whatever.
For me specifically, I didn't think that it was possible for me. And
Of
this is
course.
something that I struggled with for most of my life, where I would see other people do great things. I'd be like, wow, that's so cool. Those guys are so awesome. And never once did it dawn to me that I could be awesome if I
Right.
tried.
Yeah. I
That's
mean,
their thing to do.
all it takes is not quitting,
Hmm.
and improving too. You can't I want to go off what you're saying, because what you're saying is really inspirational and important, but I do want to throw in a caveat with, there are people who are probably even listening to this show who are like, I train jujitsu every day, I train, it's just not happening. You have to continuously do it, but also not turn into a bitter asshole who blames everybody else. Because
Sure.
I see that a lot in comedy, or when I was coming up, I mean, Pete
Hmm.
and I were
You see,
reminiscing about everything,
does
where it's
that
like,
end careers, do you find?
well, they either need to change their fucking attitude, or yeah, they just don't make it. Where they're like, I'm doing it fucking every night, but this person's not coming to see me, and this person's like, nope, you can't do that. It's like the guy sitting around being like on the internet, like, why can't I get a girl? These fucking bitches. It's like, well, maybe we start there. Maybe we stop calling them bitches and like learn a skill, and
Mhm.
to make yourself attractive. Learn how to listen instead of getting on fucking 4chan and being like, these whores. So, but it can be the same with like a career, right? Where you were looking at those people making a living with their dreams, and you were being a little down on yourself and a little wistful, which is fine and normal. But some people, a lot of people, would look at someone with the career they want and go, why'd that fucking guy get it?
Mhm.
Why, this guy, blah, 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 blah. I mean, Pete was jealous of me in the beginning of my career. I was jealous of him in the middle. And now we realize like we have so much in common. And it's like, wow, that's decades we could have been friends.
Is it
Uh,
high functioning anxiety? Is that what you have in common?
that alcoholism, an eating
Ace
disorder.
those tests,
Yeah,
everyone.
yeah, yeah. Being really good at tests. But yeah, so to your point, it is heartbreaking. I've been thinking about this so much recently, because this is the happiest I've been in a long time.
Oh, that's great to hear.
Yeah, yeah. But it's also a lot of me like I'm being very me focused, because I
Mhm.
have to, because I never have been, and I'm waking up happy every day, just like you can't remember like welding. Like I remember, man, I used to wake up every day in a fucking panic.
Mm.
Just like the second it clicked that I'm still alive, it was just this like, ugh. And now that sounds dramatic because I'm dramatic, but I think a lot of people go through that even with their
Mhm.
jobs or their relationship or their
Well,
whatever. Like you
for
never want
sure,
to wake
man.
up and like look at your partner and just be like,
Whatever the
oh,
situation is, if you feel like waking up is like you were free in your dream state and now you wake up back into prison, of course you'd feel that
right.
way.
Right. And that's also why so many people, the idea of me, I hope this doesn't sound like pretentious, But the idea of me sleeping late now taking mine, I don't have kids, so like, you know, you're up all night,
Oh, I
whatever.
don't have a sleep cycle. You're not talking to me.
Yeah, exactly. But the idea of sleeping late in like a mental health, when I used to like brag about sleeping till noon or whatever, it's either because I was out drinking with people I shouldn't have been, or I just kept hitting the snooze button or was just rolling around depressed. It is very rare that, and it happens, but it's very rare that you wake up and go back to bed because you're so happy. You know what I mean?
That's a great point.
Like usually you're just like, ugh, and then you just pull the covers up. And when I hear people, I mean, there have been a couple girls that I was like thinking about dating, and even just a little thing like talking about like, oh, I just gotta like keep sleeping or hitting that alarm. I'm like, no, like I can't do it. Like I want to be with someone who's like, let's fucking get up and kill it. And not in an anxious way, not in a like, oh fuck, I got so much to do, I gotta get up, but just kind of like, I mean, dude, it's so insane where I went from every morning being like, yeah, if I killed myself, I wouldn't be in this situation, to literally like seize the day. And I wake up without a fucking alarm at 4:30. And I'm like excited. And ever since I've started doing that, before good stuff started happening, good stuff has started happening. And so I think take two things from this. Take what Drew's saying, which is like, you can fucking do it. Don't limit your options and then work at it. But I'm going to add a little bit of like hippie shit, which is work on yourself as a person outside of that, outside of the career, outside of whatever defines you, finding a relationship, whatever. And if you can find happiness in your heart, you know, good things just come, man. Like this will be the last thing I say, and I'm tempted not to say it because it's going to sound maybe gross, but in LA, the place where, you know, shit happens for my career, I was so depressed and so concerned with like, I'm not good enough, I'm not doing this, I need to have a girlfriend, I'm on dating sites, blah blah blah. Wasn't doing anything to take care of myself. I was like eating meat again, which again for you guys cool, but that goes against my values. I wasn't being who I am. I was drinking again, all this stuff. And then I moved to Arizona, far away from LA, far away from industry, far away from New York. And I've spent since the Mall of America incident, meditating twice a day, being vegan, working out, just trying to be kind to people, like helping my neighbors, all this shit, all the cliche shit you hear about. And all of these things that I thought were going to happen in LA, literally emails last week. Like I just got a record deal. I don't think I told you that. I just got a record deal. If you are in Denver, LA, or Chicago, those are where we're debating. Maybe Arizona. I just want to do it as fast as possible because I'm excited.
That's where you're going to record?
Yeah.
Ooh,
I know. Denver.
exciting.
Yeah. So LA, there's like a famous dude who wants to give me like his TV studio.
Oh my
and
God.
it would be like a big thing. And he's like taking temperatures and all this stuff. But I also just found a little like alleyway speakeasy in Denver that I don't think is legally supposed to be putting on shows because their motto is no cops. And the idea of recording it there during COVID is also very enticing, you know, just
What if
because
it
it
says,
captures the vibe of the year.
what if you think it's just a speakeasy, but it says no cops because it's actually like a crack
Because
house
it's a
and
trap.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's like getting in a van that just says like not kidnappers.
Yeah, exactly. So you can go to LA and you know, I believe you have to drink child blood. That's part of the celebrity circle now.
That is,
or you could go to Denver and you have to survive meth heads while you're recording.
Yeah. It's
This
child
is a hard
blood.
choice.
I know. According to Republicans, it's child blood, specifically from the girls in the Netflix show.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, the cutie.
Yeah,
They didn't survive. They're all just in blood bags now.
Yep. And Leonardo DiCaprio's basement. So that's really exciting. This TV show that I've wanted for years called me, and like
Cuties?
that's not definite.
Oh.
Cuties. Yeah. I'm season 2. It's gonna be very disappointing for everybody, really. Pedophile or not. I'm just a
They need something to compare against, right? So,
but I finally get to say I have a Netflix special. When people go, "Oh, stand up," I'm just gonna go, "Oh, I gotta go." Bye.
I
Bye.
was standing up during it.
I was. I'm not during a lot of it, unfortunately.
Ooh.
But the man, I saw the dumbest fucking meme by one of our guests.
I'm sorry.
It's it's so funny. So you have to work on yourself first, because if you're going for all of the things that Drew talked about, this is going to sound so dumb, but I got to start owning this stuff because it's true. But deep down, you don't feel like you deserve it because you're not happy or you're not being a good person or whatever. You're going to cockblock yourself.
Yeah.
I guarantee
for sure.
it.
For sure. The only one that stops you is you.
Yeah.
And the cops.
And the cops. Yeah. I really hope we wrap season 2 of Cuties before the cops find out about this. So if you're just like, oh, I can't get a girlfriend, why can't I get a girlfriend? Why can't I get a girlfriend? Do you really think you're going to put out the energy of like a girl being like, ooh, look at that? Because you're going to be bitter and resentful and you don't believe you deserve it, right? Yeah. And it's the same with career and life and shit, is if you don't have a solid foundation of, the Dalai Lama talks about, there's a Buddhist practice in general about kind of picturing like your worst fears and being like, okay, I can live with that. Like I did that this morning. I was like, what would happen if I just like never had a girlfriend, if I was alone? I'd be like, well, if I'm living like this, I'd be okay. And I'd be like pretty happy.
Yeah, that's a thing that everybody tends to justify not doing something because they fear the worst case scenario. They never look at any other possibility but the worst case scenario. Which actually, it's a natural reaction, but it's actually kind of cool when you do it anyways, because then you're almost guaranteed not to get the worst case scenario. So it's always better than you think it's going to be.
Yes. Well, I mean, so jiu-jitsu, let's say Drew and I are fucking rolling and I'm like, he's gonna give me the fucking reverse Kimura. He's gonna give me the fucking reverse. Like, he's gonna get me in it. You know what I mean? The guillotine's a great fucking example where, and I've probably used this on the show before. I use this in real life a lot. If you are afraid I am going to guillotine you when you shoot on me, your shot's going to be tentative, which is going to put you in the range for me to guillotine the shit out of you. If you're like, I'm going to plow through it, and even if he grabs my head, I'm going to finish and I'm going to jump over to side control, I'm not saying you'll do it, but you'll certainly get a lot farther. And there's a much greater chance of you doing it. Like, the guys I guillotine them, or the least, are the ones who don't know about it. But every time I'm going with some new one, black belt, whoever, and some other black belt's like, watch out for his fucking guillotine. I'm going to catch him in it, because they're just like, wait, what?
Maybe that should be what you do at the beginning of every roll. You slap bump. By the way, watch out for my guillotine.
That's so good. That's so good. And then once you get it once, you just watch them slowly. If I get someone,
warn them and then hit them with it, you will fuck them up forever.
It's a lot, man.
You'll never get an honest roll out of them again.
But I do that all the time because people know. Other people will say, watch out. And I just go, and I shrug. And then it happens. And what's interesting is, there was one guy who I could not fucking catch in it. And then the second I caught him in it.
You never caught me. Oh, go ahead.
The second I caught him in it, suddenly I started getting
right.
Like that.
It wasn't because you got better at it. It's because he started worrying about it.
Yep. Yeah. And so the reverse of that is true, which I think is really interesting. This is kind of inspiring. I use this example a lot, where for a while, I forget what the numbers were on it, but for a while, let's say no one beat a 5-minute mile or a 6-minute mile. The second one person did, floodgates, dude. That year, so many people were breaking the world record that was just not touched. Because if you don't believe it is a possibility, how the fuck are you going to do it? If you don't believe you deserve to be happy, if you don't believe you can make a living with jiu-jitsu, if you don't believe, how is it going to go? And if you're spending all of your time just looking at other people, being like, why does that guy make it? Why does, it will just hold you fucking back.
Yeah. I had the same feelings once I started. So I've mentioned and it's coming up soon, that I'm releasing a series on guard retention. We've been talking
Yeah.
about it for a couple months now. This is the first one that I'm getting into more of a generalized topic. So my first two, my only two at this point, were reverse Kimura, which is very specific, very interesting, tricky, sort of a neat tool to add. This one is like all around jujitsu. So that's great for helping somebody's all around jujitsu. But as somebody who's making it, there's a dozen guard retention videos out there already. So I started fighting with myself, like, do I want to do a topic that's been done so many times?
Yeah.
And it was the same thing. It's like I wasn't believing in myself. You know?
I got more excited for you now that you were doing this. And I say this with respect. I think you'll take it the right way. But when you were just doing reverse Kimura stuff, I was like,
Jamie. Oh, go on.
I was like, oh, Drew found a thing no one did. And like it could almost, you could trick yourself if you wanted to be like, oh, this is like a fluke. This is like a trick.
Now I got to find like another trick that nobody's found. Yeah.
Yes. You're like the reverse Kimura guy, right?
Yeah.
And I saw somebody else around the same time, famous, is I think putting out a guard retention. Giles, maybe? Someone.
Yeah, Giles is coming out with one. I mean, Danaher's had one. I think Gordon had one.
And when I saw it,
Balding had one.
And when I saw it, I just went, fucking good, Drew. Like I was happy. I wasn't like, uh-oh, people are gonna get Giles's. I was just like, fuck yeah. That's Drew, like being like, oh, I see that, but also I have something different to add to it, to offer to it. For sure. And that's a big fucking deal on your part.
This is what I had to come to grips with, is people who are going to get one that I teach want to hear me teach it and see how I explain it. People who get the one from Giles want to see him do it and see how he explains it. And this is something that I learned as a gym owner, is there's a saying that says your vibe attracts your tribe. Like there are going to be people that don't learn well because of the way that you teach. And that's not a knock on you. That means that they're not supposed to be your student.
You know who I don't do anything that they taught me? Fucking Henzo guys.
Yeah.
Literally known as the greatest teachers in the world. Danaher, nope. And then when I watch like Gordon do like his Danaher impression, I'm just like, this is like a dumber version. Like I can't, but it's on me. Yeah. I can't focus like that. Marcelo would get criticism from some people that he was a little like, okay, do this, let's go.
Yeah, he doesn't explain enough, right?
Yeah. But what was so great about Marcelo is he was so, and this is not the case at Henzo's New York. Danaher just like sits in the corner, you know?
Calls you a retard.
Yep. Yeah. But Marcelo walks around to everybody. So you can just, so for me, because I'm just like riddled in learning disabilities, I'm like, just let me try as quick as possible. Like I'm kinesthetic, right?
Yes.
But then when Marcelo goes around, I every time will call him over and be like, hey, what am I doing wrong? And then when he can kind of show me as I'm doing it, but I'll start to panic, you know, when people are like, people loved. So I say this with nothing but love, but when Sean Williams would give really long explanations and he would give examples and details, and if he does this, you can do this. And I would watch the clock, because the longer it went, I was like, well, I just forgot the first thing he said. And then he would say something new, and I'm like, there goes the second thing. Where I'm like, my brain with jujitsu, with comedy, with all that stuff, it's cool. With callbacks, with improv, it's fine. But with like very technical jujitsu, every time he said something else just like went away. But if I just let me do it, let me go do it.
Yeah.
And then I'll get it, you know?
So would you rather go to a seminar of a famous person that you respect and learn 10 new things, or one new thing? Because if you go to one with 10 new things, I guarantee you're only going to learn one new thing.
Yeah, it's one. And then so when I was doing seminars, for the most part, it was just all these different ways to put together the guillotine attacks, and then how to defend it so that you could spar it with some like adversity, you know? Yeah, I think it's like a big like umbrella concept or umbrella move I would rather learn.
Yeah.
Than just a bunch of like kind of disjointed bullshit.
I was talking to a student recently here who unfortunately blew his knee rolling about 4 or 5 weeks ago. He
Ugh.
got caught in a knee bar and moved the wrong way.
Yeah.
Um, and he was asking me when he came back here, he's being a little careful with his knee, but he's trying to train as best he can. He's like, man, can you go over some knee bar defense with me real quick? Because I don't want
Yeah.
that to happen again. I'm like, yeah, that's a great idea. I showed him something that I learned from a private session that I paid like $350 for with Kyotera back in 2011. I
Yep.
showed him one knee bar defense that takes 10 seconds to show. And I'm like, I have been caught once since
Yep.
2011 in a knee bar because of this one thing. That was
Yep.
worth every penny. And I've passed it on to everybody who asks because it's
Yep.
just such an immediate game changer.
I did a private. By the way, I was so proud of myself because your friend and student got injured. The joke I wanted to make was when you were like, he blew his knee. I wanted to say, is his knee attractive? I did. So I've trained with Kaio a couple of times, and I don't know how your lesson worked, but I asked Kaio. We just rolled for an hour, and then he would stop me and correct things.
Mhm.
And 8 years ago, 10 years ago, because I was with a girl I should not have been with. He taught me this little tweak to single leg X, and I'm like, I remember it like it was yesterday,
Mhm.
you know, because it was just in this moment, and he's a good teacher, and blah blah blah. It's interesting, and this goes to another kind of Buddhist philosophy I've been learning a lot from, which your student kind of nailed, which is
Blow your knee. Oh.
when I got submitted, the only time I was submitted in a tournament, it was from a weird move, and it just stuck with me so hard that I've never got caught in it.
Yeah.
You know, and I was reading the Dalai Lama this morning, and he talked about showing compassion and love for your enemies. And the guy was like, yeah, but like, no. Like, why would I do that?
Yeah.
And the first more altruistic answer is, well, you are a human being who wants to be free of suffering, which means they are also a human being who would like to be free of suffering. So you both want the same things. But a more practical, pragmatic way to look at it, and to this conversation, is they are gifting you with adversity. So if it's someone that you just get really fucking frustrated every time they talk, they are gifting you by helping you become more patient, or they are, you know what I mean? And
so that's what you got from Henzo's.
That's what I got from Henzo's. Yeah, but I mean, like when you're at, yeah, like I know I never want to teach that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like. But if I was just sitting there like, this is fucking bullshit, I'm in fucking New York, I should have gone to Marcelo's, I was like, huh, like, what can I get out of this? I'm like, all right, like, well, I'm not going to get the move. Like, I've accepted that. So I'm just going to kind of try to get as much out of the ride. That actually happened where I was like, well, I'm not going to learn this move. So I was like, okay, when rolling starts, I'm going to get everybody good because I'm not going to get dicked out of that too. So I'm like, I grabbed like shields, I grabbed Krellenston, and I was like, I'm just going to go with like tough guys. And then when I left, I go, you know what else they gifted me with? I'm not coming back. Like, I didn't enjoy it. It's not my vibe, right? And the guys there have a strong vibe. And
well, it's not that you don't train with amazing people at Marcelo's while you're there too. It's not the skill level, right? It's the vibe.
Yeah, it's the vibe. It's 100% the vibe. Where, you know, this is why everyone writing in about like wanting to change schools, but like, oh, but this guy's so good, or this teacher, or I want to get promoted. It doesn't matter. You have to go where it makes you happy. And again,
you enjoy your training.
Yeah. And even when I was at Marcelo's, some of the moves I use the most. So my main game is definitely Marcelo's, but I have some like go-to moves that I learned from now a Marcelo black belt, but at the time he was a blue belt at Marcelo's. Or I have two moves that Huron Gracie showed me and I think we've only rolled twice.
Mhm.
But they're like my A+. I could teach a fucking seminar on these moves, and literally he showed me in like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you never know where you're gonna pick up shit, you know.
Mhm.
Like there's a brown belt teaching in Iowa City somewhere that is a way better of a teacher than the majority of black belts you pay like $1,000 to come to a seminar.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember talking to Cole Miller, legendary UFC fighter that he was, after he was retired, and he got much more into the jiu-jitsu scene at that point.
Yeah, he beat the shit out of me. He came to Marcellus.
Oh yeah, there you go. I think he's like a second or third degree black belt now.
Yeah.
But we were talking about Danaher. This was just a private conversation because he had just come out with his leg lock thing, and everybody was like, "Whoa, mind's blown!" There was the first systematizing video that he did, and everybody was all up on it. And I remember Cole was the only one at that point, and it stuck in my mind because of that. Because now there's more people that have opinions, but at that point, Cole's like, "This is nothing different than what I've been taught for decades. Like, this is, I don't understand what the big deal is." And I'm thinking, okay, it means that your teacher's amazing.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that Danaher is like normal.
Totally. Well, I think Cole was down at ATT when he came.
Exactly. He's training with like legendary Brazilian black belts, right?
Yeah.
Longtime ADCC competitors and champions. So for him, it's like, I don't get what the big deal is. This is the stuff we do all the time. That's because, you know, you're at the right place then.
Yeah. Yeah. I've said this as a joke, but I do think there's something to it. Sometimes when I listen to like philosophers and stuff, if they have a British accent, I'm like, that guy knows what he's talking about.
Yeah.
I feel like Danaher with New Zealand, right?
Yes.
He speaks very well, and then he has that accent, and you go, well, that can't be wrong.
He speaks very purposefully too. You listen to his sentences just in the structure. There's no
Jocko
ums, there's no
Jocko does that too. Yeah.
And he is very, like, he doesn't speak quickly about anything. He's very talking about the system and the fundamentally and the angles and the levers and the wedges. But it's, sorry, I put you to sleep there.
Let me do it. Just let me do it.
But that's part of his teaching style, is he knows what he's going to say word for word, and he doesn't miss a word.
Yep. Yeah. I even learn more if the teacher's funny.
Sure.
Because that's my language.
Yes.
That's the language I get. Where I'm just like, oh, I get it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Huron, I think, is one of the best teachers in the world. Man, people really shit on Gracie combatives or whatever because, you know, Henner and Huron like made a business, or because it's
it got commercialized to the point that it also got characterized, right? So they became a caricature of themselves to help promote the product. And then people screwed up by thinking like, well, these guys are a bunch of goofs. Like, dude, they're still amazing.
I think the best teachers on the planet. Also, there are some crazy roles. If you watch any of Huron's roles of black belts when he was promoting Keep It Playful on YouTube, I highly recommend. It made my jiu-jitsu better just watching. If you go to watch, this is on YouTube too. I was at one of the immersion camps. Henner versus Brian Ortega. It's like outside, and they're like kids watching and stuff. It is one of the coolest, most intense fucking roles. Watching Henner and Huron roll together is fucking incredible. And what's interesting is, you know, I like to think I'm this evolved person who is not susceptible to peer pressure or whatever. I remember liking Henner and Huron, and then this is forever ago. I was like a blue belt, and then everyone starts kind of making fun of Henner and Huron, and I go, oh, I guess I'm not supposed to like Henner and Huron. Right. And then the reason that I sought them out, and I was going to
be a G and a Gi.
I want to be a Genie, was because Paul Schreiner, who is like,
he's founded the Schreiner Circus.
Yeah. Paul Schreiner is like the Pixies in the sense that like, well, everyone talks about Marcelo and Danaher, and they're like, you know, but if you're like a cool hipster, you're like, well, I only listen to the Pixies. I only listen to Live Neutral Milk Hotel or whatever. Where Schreiner is like low key hipster one of the best jiu-jitsu instructors in the world, and he was second in command under Marcelo. So he was a Dave Camarillo guy, came up with Camarillo and BJ and like all the guys in the Bay Area. And then Ryan Hall credits him for essentially like teaching him everything he knows.
That's huge right there. That tells me more than anything else you just said, because Ryan Hall doesn't compliment anyone.
Anybody. And Ryan, by the way, I learned from very well. Everything Ryan showed me, I've retained, and it's a combination of he's funny and terror.
I know he's got a tick in the way that he blinks while he's talking, but I feel like he's like
the tick
like
isn't just
saving,
in the blink, buddy.
He's like saving files, and that's his RAM refreshing every time.
Yeah. He holds a vengeance. But he's such a good teacher. But Paul like whispered where he's like, you know who the fucking best teacher in the world is? And he's like, it's Huron. And I was like, what? And when the cool
you mean guy, like the quick flip guy's brother?
Yeah. and when he gave me permission, I was like, oh. And then I started looking into it. It would essentially be like if Miles Davis was like, you should check out Kenny G. And you're like, what? Well, I guess the fucking Miles Davis is telling me to do it. And then you're suddenly like, is Kenny G incredible? That's what happened where because Paul just game recognizes game, right?
Yeah,
and yeah, Huron. And then Henner and Huron, man, I wonder if I still have access to this, because I would go back, gave me access to Gracie University.
Mm-hmm.
And this was right when I started teaching. So I watched some of the like Women's Empowered, and I watched some of the fundamentals, and I was like, God, these are like little details that are so well explained that I don't use. And at that point I was like purple belt.
And
phenomenal instruction.
Not to make this a commercial for the Gracies, but I have heard from multiple third-party sources. I've never looked at their system online, but they say that compared to any other website, it is the easiest to navigate, the most well laid out, and it's just very simple, user-friendly, and very quick to learn from. So they've done this thing called Gracie Garage, where they have a system set up on their website to basically help people who are in remote areas, have no access to any other jiu-jitsu instructor, to basically like bring them up to the level that they can teach people just underneath them, and then they can all rise basically at the same time to that blue belt level.
Yeah, which it's interesting, because whenever I would sing their praises, they would go, yeah, but what about like these internet promotions? And I'm like, yeah, that is kind of shitty. But hearing you describing that, you essentially described how jiu-jitsu started in America.
Of course.
Blue belts in garages.
Yeah.
Figuring shit out and helping each other.
He was a brown belt under Hoist Gracie for 9 years because Hoist was just never around to promote him.
Hilarious. Oh, well, that makes me feel better about my brown belt situation.
Yeah.
I mean, my first instructor was a blue belt. And guess what? I knew nothing. So it helped.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's something that I took to heart too once I started teaching as a late brown belt and a young black belt. Was people told me, like, don't compare yourself to the world famous instructors that you know, because everybody walking into your gym, you're as talented as Marcelo Garcia to them. Yep. You're a magician. You're miles beyond what they even understand is possible. So you don't have to be the best of the best. You're already an expert.
Yep. I was seeing if we had any questions. Not on my end.
Here, let me look into it. I know I had one before we started.
We put it out 2 seconds. While Drew looks for that, let me reprimand our pathogens. We have said so many times, send in questions to the Rear Naked Radio Instagram. I will consistently only get questions to my personal. I think maybe that's because they want to like talk to me, maybe, but like it's not getting answered on the show, because it's buried in between 20 people being like, hey, are you going to kill yourself? And then another 20 people being like, hey, thanks for helping me not kill myself. So when someone's like, my arm bar needs help, I'm like, I don't care.
you want to hear something funny? One of the questions, literally the second question that got sent in is, Jamie, could you follow my friend and tell her how great BJJ is?
That's a nightmare. That's a fucking nightmare. Can I follow your friend
You got a
This is-
check, man. That means something.
This is the perfect example of people not doing what they would do on the internet in real life. Imagine, Drew, if I was just like, hey, I have a girlfriend who I really want to get in jiu-jitsu. She gets off work at 5 at ShopRite. Could you wait outside for her, follow her to her car, and then just shout, you should do jiu-jitsu. I have a blue check mark. Where it's like, that's insane. That's insane.
Okay, I'm not making this up. The third question, the one after that one, is
Can I stay with you?
love the podcast, big fan. And then in parentheses underneath that, hope Jamie's doing well.
What is wrong with everybody? It's so funny. I mean, look, again.
Look, they don't care if I'm doing well. That's what I got out of it.
Well, because you're fine. If we're talking about Buddhism and we're talking and taking in other people's suffering, it's like, I know I am helping people through all of my pain. So yeah, I'm a little more open about it.
Have we got Hollywood script writers writing in these responses, listening live while it happens? Here's the fourth one.
Stop it. Can you fix my armbar?
No, it says, can you get John Danaher or Gordon Ryan as a guest? Not after this episode.
Nope. Oh, this is me tame, you guys. This is me being respectful. This isn't at all my actual thoughts, which are far fucking worse.
Do you want some actual jiu-jitsu questions?
No. Yes, but the thing that, and I'm sure you can relate to this, Drew.
Mm-hmm.
My biggest pet peeve on the internet, and it happened to me recently, was someone TM'd me some racist shit, and I go,
I love it when they do that.
Yep, and I go, oh, don't DM me ignorant shit.
I hate white people too.
Yeah, take that elsewhere. And then I blocked him.
Okay.
And then he wrote me from another account.
He's got burner accounts.
Yep. And he goes, hey man, why'd you block me? I was just trying to have a conversation and like your content. You're not entitled to any of that.
Mm-hmm.
To any of it. Like,
here's the move. You got to turn it into an OnlyFans account so only the people that pay get to see it.
Yeah. Patreon.com/Jamie Hilton podcast, y'all.
Less dick pics, more info.
The idea of like, oh, he's like, I just want to have a conversation. Like, you get all of my free content, then you get to send me racist shit, and then if I don't want to deal with you, you're just like, what, man? I just wanted to have a debate. I don't want to debate a 22-year-old racist. I would like to live my day and enjoy my fucking day without dealing with trash. If someone approaches me in like a respectful manner, I've had debates online that are really good. But like, no, you don't get to like bust in and be like, well, maybe Breonna Taylor should have fucking, and then expect me to be like, oh, you want to meet up for tea? And we can talk about your fucking racist garbage views. Like, no, go fuck yourself. I'm mad that you got my free content for this long. You know what I mean? Like, fuck off.
That was amazing. I love that rant.
Ugh.
We could do some jiu-jitsu questions now.
Yeah, let's do it.
I was so happy with the way that went, though. That couldn't have been planned better.
Oh, good. that was insane. Is JV okay? That was my favorite.
That was good. All right, first one is weight cutting. Have you guys ever done weight cutting for competition? And did you find that it affected your performance?
Oh, this is a great question. So my first time, I've never told this. I don't think I've ever told you this, Joe. So my first time, I go, I'm not gonna weight cut. Like, this isn't the fucking UFC where like you're cutting I'm like, it's mat size. So if you guys don't know, for jiu-jitsu tournaments, it's different than the UFC. UFC, people cut so much weight. They do weigh-ins the night before, so they have time to rehydrate, eat food, and then compete. I think even that's stupid. Kenny Florian and I became friends. My first UFC friend because I made
you fed him after a weight cut.
Because I gave him a cookie. I gave him a little cookie. And Kenny's one of my closest friends in this world. And he wrote something about weight cuts on Twitter. And I just wrote him. And I was like, why can't we just all get on the fucking honor system, agree to fight at what we weigh, and then we can eat whatever we want and like all be friends? And he was like, followed. And then we become friends ever since.
There's a Simpsons episode you just reminded me of where the typical criminal is in like the minimum security prison. That's and right. he sees who is it, Homer driving by with his car.
Snake.
Yeah, Snake, that's right. And he's like, screw the honor system, I'm out of here, and walks out through the door, and the criminals behind him are like, you're ruining it for the rest of them.
That last line is, dude, that season is so fucking flawless. Here's a podcast recommendation. There's a podcast, one of Conan's podcasts where he interviews Bill Hader, and they
Still haven't listened to that podcast.
Oh my god, and they just talk about like their favorite Simpsons episodes. I will
Nice.
re-listen to it. Bill Hader is one of the best interviews. He also talks about depression and anxiety. I hope he's okay. So
send him a comment on Instagram. Love the podcast, man. Are you okay?
You doing all right? So
weight cutting.
Yeah, I'm just like, this is fucking stupid. If you weight cut and like you almost die, but then you guys both rehydrate and you both end up at the same weight, why are we fucking doing this? I mean, Kendall was talking about that's where her fucking eating disorder came from. Like high school wrestling, you're doing that shit like every other week. You're cutting like 20 pounds. And so I think the whole thing's fucking stupid. But jiu-jitsu, it's Matt's side. So I go, oh.
That takes some of the strategy out of it because you can't
game the system, is what I thought. Until, so I showed up at the New York Open looking like this, like 150-pound, not ripped, just like dude. And I remember walking onto the mat. This was my first competition ever. And seeing like bunch of like dudes who look like these little team alpha male guys, like in hoodies,
hoodied up. Yeah.
Yep. And I was just like, oh man, who are those welterweights? Glad I'm not fighting those guys. And then they were like, all right, Matt 3. And I was like, oh, weird. The giant welterweight is following me. And then I was like, oh, I'm fighting them. Yeah. Those are the guys I'm fighting. So especially when you're dealing with wrestlers, they can still do it. They still know how to do it. And they were bigger than me and stronger than me, and I wasn't skilled enough to do anything. Where literally I was like, well, just don't tap out. That was my goal. So it was just kind of me being like, and just defending against these monsters. My little silver medal run that I had, the PANS, Trials, and Worlds, of just not being able to, not caring enough to win, but like being good enough to get silver.
I need somebody to weight down the podium on the one side.
Yeah, I cut at light feather, and I did better, but I was miserable. I mean, the weight cut took up my life.
Yeah.
Like, how am I supposed to do comedy? If I was a professional competitor, cool, but I'm like, I don't know how I'm supposed to keep doing this.
Dude, that reminds me, the first time I ever did like a legit weight cut for an MMA fight, it was for my first MMA fight. And I only had to cut like 7 or 8 pounds, which isn't a lot in MMA standards, but I'd never done it before. So it was a lot of trial and error, mostly error.
Well, and you don't carry around a lot of like fat.
No, so I'm cutting it out of my organs, basically dropping water out of them, which that hurts. But I remember that my boss at the time called me into the office to basically ask, like, why the fuck are you being so unproductive? Why are you, I don't see, his word was gumption. I need more gumption out of you. This guy's like a 60-year-old Dutch motherfucker who's just a piece of shit. Anyways, nothing against the Dutch. This guy just,
like, we're welders. We're miserable cunts, but we have gumption.
Yeah, gumption, right? Yeah. So anyways, I sort of like, well, I got a fight coming up. He's like, well, you're going to fight your way out of a job. I'm like, oh my God. Like, are we done here? I'm literally starving myself to death, and I don't have time to listen to your grandpa analogies.
I was going to say, but he went home to his wife and was like, and then I said, and like,
yeah, exactly.
Are you paying attention? She's like, yeah, yes, dear, good job.
Gumption,
like, no,
right.
No. And then because he had a fight, and I said, and she was like, all right, can you take out the trash? She's like, God damn it. And like, he's beaten down there.
Yeah,
and then,
she's thinking, did he take his Alzheimer's medication today?
Yeah, and it just the game of hate tag that we play just continues. So I mean, man, what I would say is my actual advice. If you're like an older blue belt and you're like, I want to compete to say I did this, go all in. Fucking cut weight. I've heard fighters defend weight cutting as like it's part of the the camp. It's part of the drive, the
Yeah, it's the
sacrifice,
first
whatever.
fight before the fight. Yeah.
Yeah. So like do it to do it and just be like, I bet I can do it. I mean, I went from being like, there's no way I can cut 5 pounds to I cut 15 in like 2 months. And I did it like in a pretty healthy way. I had someone like who knew what he was doing help me. And if you're a competitor and you want to make a living as a jiu-jitsu competitor, you got to play the game. Now that could also mean though that you're a guy who doesn't cut weight and your technique is just so good you like fucking up big guys. Cool. But if you want to be a professional competitor, see what you like more, which means cut weight, fight, evaluate your performance. Don't cut weight, fight, evaluate your performance, and see what's better. And then, yeah, if you're like a full-time fucking mom or dad, or you have a job and you're like, I can't do this, but like it's just for fun or whatever, yeah, just fucking show up. Like if I were to compete now, I wouldn't go to light feather, which is 135. I'm probably like one. I'm like chubby right now because I haven't been working out. So like I'm probably like 150. I'm probably like 156 right now. I would go to 145, but that's because healthy and shape Jamie should probably be walking around at like 150.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like it's like, okay, I'm getting down to the shape I should be in and then cutting 5 pounds is how I'm looking at it. But like for my frame, if I want to just start like sweeping gold and shit, I would probably need to go to 135. And I'm like, I'm not doing that.
No, fuck that. My advice, just real quick, is if you are going to be interested in doing a weight, not necessarily a cut, I guess it's like making weight. There's a difference between making weight and cutting weight. And here's the difference is if you're going to make weight, that's the long goal. So say, the competition is coming out 6 or 8 weeks ahead. You got to make weight by changing your diet first, by changing your exercise regimen. There's a lot that goes behind making that weight besides just cutting the water. And that's what the actual weight cut is at the end. If there's extra weight at the end you need to cut, you can do a water cut, but that should be like the last pound or two. You should be able to drop that 10 pounds with a diet change and exercise.
And that's what I was saying is like, even when I cut that 15 pounds, I think the first 10 pounds just got me into shape, where I was like, oh, I'm just training hard. I'm training twice a day. I mean, the most important thing is like talk to someone who's an actual professional about this and don't suddenly be like,
that was my big mistake for my first couple fights.
Throw on a garbage bag and start like going into a sauna like by yourself because you're going to die. And also while COVID's going on, how about don't be an idiot and go to big competitions.
There's also that. Yeah, we should throw that out there.
Throw that out. Now,
good luck to everybody at PANS, by the way, coming up.
Is that actually?
Yeah, it's the Pandemic Championship.
I don't respect you if you're competing in that. And here's the thing. I want people to make livings. I think Fight to Win, UFC, Bellator, all of these Eddies tournaments, I'm so happy they exist. As a fan and as someone who is watching schools get shut down unjustly, a lot of them, I want all of us to make a living doing this. They're doing it safe. Anybody who responded to my video making fun of people who are going to PANS was like some fucking loser blue belt who was like, oh, I guess you're going to live in fear, sheep. I'm like, why are you doing this?
Hi, Gordon. I know it's you.
Like, yeah. But like, it's so, were you the one who said, I think you said this to me in a DM. I'm so sorry. I'm going to out you. But you were like,
I'm gay. Oh, sorry.
The people who say that are the same ones that every time Gordon makes a post just writes, King.
King, yeah. 4 crowns.
You fucking losers.
Kill people's sheep are the sheepiest of people.
That's what I was just going to say. I was just going to fucking say that. And again, I'm like learning to be like, okay, I have to show compassion for them too. But it's
Buddha,
like
Buddha.
But when you have such little respect for the people around you, just because like you want to look cool, you're a child. You're a fucking child. I think black belts should be competing. I think high level brown belt, all that in like safe environments, shit like that. But like, yeah, have fun in Florida, you fucking dorks.
Yeah, need I remind you guys, I think I said this on the podcast already, but I'll remind for the new pathogens. It wasn't that long ago, 2019, ADCC, big tournament, but actually small in numbers, right? Because there's not that many people competing. One team came in with a bad case of conjunctivitis, which is pink eye.
Yeah.
Everybody they competed against got it because they're touching them. What team do you think it is? If you had to guess, it was the DDS.
Was it the same team that's telling everyone to stop being gay about COVID?
It's actually the same team that two of their best fighters couldn't fight on a pro card recently because they got tested positive for COVID, which then guarantees that most, if not all, the people they were training with leading into that also have it.
But that gave me 2 videos because I made a video at the beginning of this saying how Gordon Ryan died of COVID. And then when Gordon Ryan did get COVID, I got to make another one.
So basically what we're saying, guys, is no, we aren't getting Gordon on the podcast anytime soon.
Yeah.
And it's probably because of these things.
Yeah. Well, and look, the influence, man. But here's what I will say. Because whenever this debate happens, there are some people on the left who are like criticizing whatever, who also seem a little callous about these like business closures. So like someone like Tom DeBlas will make like, you know, a fucking like Trump post that I'm like, Tom. But then we'll be one of the only people making a post that's like, we have to help fucking gyms.
Mm-hmm.
And
there's truth on both sides. To be hard line on either side is what I'm blind. Talk about sheep.
So exactly. And so I can watch someone on the left talk about, you know, how COVID is, you know, we need to protect each other. But if they're not talking about jobs, it's like, okay, I'm going to take it's Bruce Lee. I'm going to take this part from them, and then I'm going to take this part from them. So what I will say to the people who, because a lot of people who are the pro jobs, we got to open businesses, are also like, masks are for sheep. You can cure COVID with orange juice and like, you know, all this shit like that. So what I will say is if there is a huge fucking outbreak at PanAms and everyone brings back, you know, COVID to these gyms that have been being careful or whatever, your gyms are going to shut down forever. And we're going to have more of this. So like, okay, you don't care about old people because you want to fucking tie for third and squeeze your sad little white belt ass onto the podium and hopefully get the inside so you can crop out the other guy who got third, right? Cool. Good on you. If you don't care about people because you're a selfish cunt who would rather I'm so mad right now. I can't get
shaking.
Who would rather not prevent this disease so you can get your little Instagram picture. Cool. But if you care about jiu-jitsu, like you say, and you think that all of the people who are speaking out against things like this don't care about jiu-jitsu and don't care about gyms, when you bring COVID back to your gym and your gym shuts down, it's because you were a selfish asshole. And so I'm saying that this is a bad idea, not because I'm like some fucking lefty and I think, and I wear a mask when I drive. And like, no, I think that the left is being so dumb with a lot of these things.
Let me explain something too. Just because people hear you bring COVID back to your gym and your gym shuts down, they're like, no, my gym's fine, or we all got it and we all can't get it again, so now we're going to stay open. Listen, you're not just bringing it back to your gym, you're bringing it back to your community in general. And this is the problem, is that if people in my area go down and compete in PANs, and there are some doing it, and come back and spread it to the point that there are actual spreading events here in Alberta, then the province reacts and shuts all gyms down. It's not just your gym. You're affecting my gym, even though I don't have students there.
Right.
That's a problem.
Yeah. And they're looking at the easiest people to blame and things are, jiu-jitsu gyms and stuff. And by the way, like I had a joke in my gym, or I had a joke in my video about how it's going to be we're not just screwing over jiu-jitsu, we're screwing over the whole world. We're going to make a super virus when like COVID merges with MRSA or whatever. Yeah. But like if there is a big outbreak, all it takes is one news story. If there is a big outbreak and it happens to be at a jiu-jitsu event, if there is a big outbreak, and no, you can't even say the UFC because they're being so fucking cautious about it. But if there was a big outbreak in the UFC, let's say one of the events they fucked up, and like everyone on this card got COVID,
Sure,
right?
and they spread it to everyone in the hotel, and everyone in the hotel spread it to their families, and suddenly the whole city is blowing
Bye
up.
UFC, all done.
Mm.
Like right now, politicians on both sides are looking for easy people to blame.
Yeah.
Don't let it be jiu-jitsu.
For sure.
I want to train again. I want gyms open, but I want us to be so fucking careful. And guess what? Like my mental health, a lot of it relies on jiu-jitsu.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going right now because like I tried and there was a little fucking outbreak and I live near old people and like I'm just going to do other shit. And it sucks, man. And like part of me the other day was I'm like, should I even be hosting a jiu-jitsu podcast if I like it's a real bummer. But I'm also like, I'm not going to be part of the fucking problem. Now with that said, it's like, I'll promote schools who are doing it safely. I'm not one of the people who just says, yeah, things are just going to suck forever. And like, sorry, your business is closing down.
No.
And again, I agree with the side that's like, hey, we are not looking at suicides and deaths of despair and alcoholism and domestic violence.
There's truths on both sides. You can't say one side has everything right, and that means that all of the other objections on the other side don't make sense, because they do too.
Yeah, the problem is the people who are right about that, the deaths of despair, are like, so like fucking survival of the fittest.
I know.
Like, go do PANs, whatever. And you're like, well, that's dumb. And then the people who are right about being precautious are like, yeah, if your business shuts down, your business shuts down. It's like, well, that's fucking dumb too. I mean, I haven't heard that, but like that's the other extreme or whatever. And it's like, guys, why don't both of you just take the things you're right about and then we build solutions off of that?
It seems so strange to say that seems so strange, but you don't see it, do you?
No. I was literally just thinking, I'm like, wow, this is probably the first conversation in the jiu-jitsu community that is taken good and bad from both sides.
Yeah.
Because it's either, yeah, everyone's a sheep. Bill Gates is doing this to stop pants. Like
fucking Bill Gates.
Dumb shit like that. Or
people are like, get that vaccine, get the microchip in your brain so you can do PANs.
Right. Yeah. Or it's just, guys, so much of it just comes to common sense. And this is COVID. This is everything we talked about. It's getting off your fucking phones, man. Because so many of these debates that happen, it's literally people shouting memes at each other. Like they're not having a conversation. It's just, I saw Eddie Bravo post this thing, or I saw Keenan post this thing, and then they're just shouting these things at each other. And it's like, guys, you're not having a conversation. You're not learning. You're not listening. You're shouting something you heard on Joe Rogan. Like, well, Rhonda Patrick said, and then if you explain to me what she meant by that. Well, Rhonda, she said, it's like, you don't know. And like, I'm glad these podcasts exist. I'm glad that people, like, I'm not shitting on any of that. What I'm saying is like, the goal shouldn't be to shout a talking point the loudest. The goal should be to educate yourself the most thoroughly, you know?
Yes. Yeah.
And just to learn and evolve and change your mind and all this shit.
Speaking of podcasts, there was a post on Instagram from the Sam Harris podcast, and all he does is put like a few words on a background, throw it out there. And it said, if you don't understand an opinion, you shouldn't say an opinion.
Yeah.
You know, you don't have an opinion yet if you don't understand it.
Yeah. Ideally, you would ask a question.
Sure. And look, I get that understanding all of the subtle nuances of a complicated topic, which most topics are, takes a lot of time. But between just learning it and going deep, you shouldn't have an opinion yet.
Yeah. So I've been reading a lot about spirituality, and I interviewed this musician, Trevor Hall, who,
Ryan Hall's brother.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be the way to rebel. Like one's a fighter and you say, well, I'm going to fucking grow dreads and play guitar. But he was big in like the Ram Dass community. And we were talking about, you know, when you first start finding spirituality, being so desperate for like an identity, like what am I? And I think one of the reasons that this has helped me so much is I didn't go into spirituality being like, well, I guess I'm a Buddhist, so I'm going to read a bunch of Buddhist stuff. I went in being like, oh, I don't know. And like, I like what this guy says, and he's like a Taoist dude. And I like what this dude said, and he's whatever. And I'm like, I feel so fucking free. Like I went to this, I talked to Pete Holmes about this. I went to this like Krishna temple where they do something called a kirtan, and it's this like chanting with like drums. It's like the most beautiful, it's so beautiful. And I was like, oh, this is the place for me. And then I heard the guy be like, yeah, you worship Krishna as like your one divine God. And I was like, well, I don't like that. But
I'm here for the drums though.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, Pete was talking about how at the core, a lot of these people believe, hey, Christ is the Buddha is Krishna, like we are all everything. But when you have a devotional thing to look at, it kind of makes it easier, whether it's Krishna, whether it's Christ, whether it's whatever. And I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting, where it's kind of like, again, it's the metaphor, right? But anyway, the reason I bring up all this weird stuff is because not starting from a place where I think I have the answer, I am gaining so much because I'm like, oh, I love this Buddhist teaching. And then I'm like, oh, I love this part. I love the kirtan. I love the music, but like, I'm not going to do that part. And like,
yeah, you know why that's possible is because you're staying outside the box. You're not letting them put you in their box and say, this is what everything is inside the box.
And it's tempting. By the way, look, you find a community and I go,
people do it.
Yeah, I go, oh, maybe, so if I go to this building every week and I read this thing, it'll fix me. And then I'm like, no, I'm not trying to be fixed. I'm trying to learn as much as possible. And I'm trying to just become the best version of myself. And so all these jujitsu debates, all this internet bullshit, it's the same thing. You don't need to be, you don't need to show everyone how fucking smart you are. You don't need to, you just need to
be objective.
Be objective.
Watch it.
And then be decent. And then just be fucking decent. And that means sometimes
making the king. Oh.
Yeah. Sometimes I'll bow down to the king. But that means sometimes like you got to be kind of selfless and you have to not do something that you really wanted to do. And instead of being like, oh, this fucking sucks, I can't compete, be like really fucking proud of yourself and be like, wow, man, like I'm not happy about this, but I can do something for others. And like, that feels kind of good too, you know, like, yeah, I think that's my last thing on that.
So basically, cutting weight, I don't know where we went there, but
yeah.
Let's hit one more quick jujitsu one and then we'll, actually, you know, before we do that, speaking of jujitsu, I was wearing my new Origin gi yesterday while I was training. Yeah. And I was putting it on and one of my students like, oh, weird, that has like a fly on it. I'm like, yeah, it's like a Velcro fly, like pants. Like pants have, it's got a fly. And he's like, oh, cool, it's got like a belt that like buckles in front. I mean, yeah, it's it doesn't have the drawstring, but it's like, you know, it's like pants. Why is it weird that pants should feel like pants? But they do. They feel like pants. They don't feel like you're wearing a gi. They feel like you're wearing pants.
This happened to me too, where I felt a little pervy. I felt a little pervy wearing the Origin pants because it felt like you know when you are like wearing sweats or whatever and you like go for a walk and like your dick's pretty much out, like because I like when I sleep I just wear sweatpants. I'm not wearing like compression shorts as well.
I can't really because I'm not wearing pants right now.
Okay. Well, no, so you know the feeling where you're just like it's a little like half like, ooh, I'm being bad / half like I know I'm wearing pants right now, but if they see my dick, is that still bad? Like, if you know what I mean? That's how I feel wearing the Origin pants is what I'm trying to say, is I feel like my dick's out. Like when I'm wearing the Origin pants, I'm like, this is too comfortable. I feel like I'm doing something wrong, but it's also kind of titillating and exciting. And then I just
go where I thought you were going to go with that. That was a roller coaster.
I was trying to yes and you. I thought that's where we were going with it.
That was great. I just pervy part had me on the edge for a sec.
Well, it's a little. If anytime you feel a little too free, you have to go, is this infringing on someone else?
Especially when it involves balls.
Well, I do I think about that a lot. Like usually balls? I go, yeah. Well, usually when I go out like free balling in my sweats, it's like 5 in the morning and there's no one really out. And
You
I'm
feel like the
walking.
bunnies judge you?
No, I think the bunnies get it.
Yeah.
But then I see a person and I'm like playing with the dog and stuff. And I'm like, there's a great chance that they can just see like dick flopping. I don't know. I don't know. What do you guys think? Right in.
And more so, you need to experience your own possibly pervy, definitely comfortable pant-like pants from
Oh, yeah.
originmain.com.
That's what I was saying. You should definitely wear compression shorts underneath because if you don't, it's so comfortable. You're going to feel like you're rolling with your dick out.
There you go. There's full circle. Good work.
Or your vagina because we're a progressive 20th century show.
Right.
21st century?
Vaginas flop? We're going to have to look into this. I don't have an opinion on this.
Your giant clit. Well, there we go, Jamie.
Way to be progressive. We really covered the gamut on that one.
Guys, Origin Main. Yesterday was September 11th, and if you don't support Origin Main, you hate the troops. OriginMain.com. OriginMain.com. American-made jobs when we need them the fucking most because things are really tough for a lot of people right now. So support a good company who's doing things for America. And by the way, if you're like, but I'm a fucking Canadian, I don't care about America. Guess what, buddy? If things crumble for us and we start wars, which we will because we get desperate, guess who's in the crosshairs? Canada.
Also, if America gets too bad, they're going to start flocking up here, and we don't want that shit. So
they don't want that.
Keep them happy.
No, you want a bunch of fucking Drews calling us bad hombres as we're trying to sneak over their fucking border? No, you don't want that at all. And on top of that, you're supporting a Canadian in Drew Weatherhead, and you're supporting a sometimes mentally healthy American in Jamie Kilstein. And if you want to keep this show going, the only way we can do the show is with our little sponsor. So go to originmain.com. You'll get 10% off using promo code Rear Naked.
And you'll get some pant-like pants.
You'll get some pant-like pants.
Speaking of progressive, Jamie, it's reminded me, I put up a jiu-jitsu video on my personal account, which, by the way, has been blowing up lately. I've been trying to push people towards it. And it's mostly jiu-jitsu videos. And I had a jiu-jitsu video that was titled, How to Crucify a Man from Technical Mount. And I thought for sure I was going to get some angry Christians talking like that. No, the first semi-angry, possibly sarcastic comment was, Drew, it's 2020. Women? I'm like, I responded because I said crucify a man, right?
But the joke
I responded,
was Jesus, right?
No. I guess if there was a joke, it was that I was using the word crucify in a non-literal sense. But you got a guy in a crucifix. That was the move.
I think of a crucifix.
I said, I get what you're saying, but I don't think that how to crucify a woman would have the same progressive result you're hoping it would.
That's very funny. That's very funny. Well, I just think when I think of crucifixion, I think of Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I'm making a joke about it, it's gonna steer towards a guy. I think of Jesus being crucified, not like fucking like Ruth Bader Ginsburg like hanging out on the cross,
I might A/B test this and throw up another one crucifying women and see how that one does. What do you think?
You're gonna get that will get you canceled.
Damn
it!
And
then you're gonna be like, no, I was trying
I was gonna get a check from this, guys. I was being like super.
Like, yeah, you want to know how to fuck up? You want to know how to beat the shit out of a woman? It's like, that's not good. That's not good either. By the way, it was totally one of my fans. I'm sure of it. So shout out to whoever you were. This is the thing too with like internet policing, where it's like there's so much sexism and racism and homophobia.
Yeah, like the real stuff.
That when someone does it like accidentally, you can educate someone. Like there are ways to be like, hey man, like I don't know if you like DM, like I don't know if you know this. But what I always say to someone is
women like to be crucified too.
Women like to be, What about us? But I'll always, my thing when I want to talk to someone about it is I always go, hey, I didn't even know this. But that like that word means like whatever, the systematic oppression of, and then you're like, oh fuck no. But if you come at it like, whenever you start with then it's like, which is then it's, and guys do that all the time. There was that meme of a guy being like, actually, did you? And it's like, okay, all right, everyone, just take down here's the thing. How about every time you want to criticize someone on the internet, you put your phone down, you go outside, and you compliment a stranger, right?
Do 10
Like,
burpees.
yeah, just like do something nice. Just go do something nice instead. Or
Imagine
like
how
go,
fit these internet warriors would be. They had to do burpees every time they got offended.
they'd be fit enough that they wouldn't need to project all their fucking insecurities out on the
Right.
goddamn internet. It would
Good.
just get rid of them. Good. All right, guys, go to originmain.com. Tune in next week. We have a very special guest next week.
Indeed.
Do you
Yes.
wanna
Yeah, let's promo it. We have a 27-time world champion. I think he's got 100 stripes on his black belt. 30,000
highest.
children throughout the world.
This is a big deal.
One of the greatest competitors, comedians, and persons in jiu-jitsu as a whole, Renato Lorange.
So exciting. I've become so close with him. By the way, I got to figure out what the vibe of this interview is going to be.
It's gonna be interesting.
Yeah,
we're gonna have to roll with this one like the Master Ken interview.
That Master Ken one was still one of my favorite. I think
people still quote it to me. I had a student last night talking about the
Bubble
beef
wrap?
stew. No, the beef stew of martial arts.
So funny. I'm gonna do another video with him before year's end, which is cool. All right, guys, I'm fading.
All right.
I love you all. Aloha, peace, and we'll see you next week.
Peace.